There is a lot of prophetic stuff going on. We're going to be talking about that today on Coffee with Conrad.
Winning.
This last weekend, there were so many prophetic things going on. It's amazing. God sometimes speaks through confirmations. You know, out of the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses, every matter will be established. And sometimes, like Gideon, you know, he'll put out. You can put out a fleece. I think that has to do with your faith level. But oftentimes, just God likes to confirm His word through 2 or 3 witnesses. And you remember Gideon put out the fleece. He heard a couple of guys talking about a dream interpretation and so forth. And it reminds me of when I went to Florida. I would pray. And, you know, when Christianity is a spiritual relationship. So when we pray, you know, we expect God to do what His word says. You know, my sheep hear my voice. Well, we expect Him to talk. You know, He has bound Himself to talk to His sheep. And that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, a sheep might not understand what the shepherd is exactly saying, but they know it's the shepherd. They recognize his voice and they follow him because he causes them to lie down in green pastures. He leads them to the still waters. Sometimes, you know, they know exactly what the shepherd's saying. I believe that has to do with relationship, the calling and the gifting that God gives us. Now, when I went to Florida back, I think that was 2005, through prayer, you know, I got revelation through prayer, and that's internal audible, internal visual as well. When we close our eyes, we're being watchful in prayer. You know, something's supposed to happen in prayer. It's a spiritual thing. You know, we're being watchful into prayer, and God will show up there. Now, there's a huge wave of prophetic revelation right now, like I haven't seen in a long time, actually. I'll be going on a prayer walk, and it's not even hard to hear God. You know, I used to have to go to the pond. Remember that? I would go to the pond for prophetic revelation, and now I can just walk around and kind of be quiet, and He'll give me these phrases, and as soon as I get back, I see people tweeting that phrase. Okay, so people are listening. And when you catch this wave of God, I've been talking about this for years, you have to listen. You know, you have to be listening for His voice. Do not refuse the one that speaks from heaven, according to Hebrews. You got to be watching. You actually have to be watchful into prayer. And a lot of people are. And they're listening, and they're tweeting. It's pretty awesome. You know, God is ramping up stuff. I did a show yesterday about, man, America, how many signs do you need? God, the Spirit is talking. People are writing books, and it's coming to a crescendo. You know, this is a Shemitah year, according to Jonathan Cahn, and it's also a Jubilee year. You know, I'm just like going, you know, we need to pay attention to what God is saying. I interviewed Tina Tatum from tinatatum.org. This is coming out Friday. We're talking about the National Day of Prayer, coming May 7th. Brown Missionary Baptist Church, the South Campus in South Haven, Mississippi. We're discussing that, and it's a really good interview. It's coming out this Friday. Be sure to catch it. She talks about a lot of interesting stuff that God is up to in this area right now. We get reeling into the nuts and bolts of this prophetic wave that's coming right now in this area. It's so exciting. And she happened to mention a prophecy given a while back about olive branch. And you're going to hear that prophecy this Friday. A little bit about it. Now, at this National Day of Prayer, May 7th, a lot of the local mayors will be there, including the mayor from Olive Branch. In this interview, she goes into detail about that appeal to heaven flag, the tree. If you remember, I've been talking about this a little bit, or actually a lot. I was in worship and I saw this green tree in these candles, like the flames from the candles coming together in one spot on the tree. And then after that, I see this tree everywhere. I go to Clay Nash's church, City Gate. There it is. And then on April 7th, Jennifer LeClaire, she's got a book that comes out that's got the tree on it. Just came out. And then, like I said, Tina mentions this prophecy about Olive Branch reaching in to Memphis. And I'm like, man, God is weaving together a tapestry of spiritual prophetic revelation, and it's resonating throughout this whole Memphis, Mid-South area here. And in this area, there's principalities over regions, like Gabriel was fighting the principality of Persia, and then Michael had to help him. There's principalities over territories. We wrestle not with flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Territories have destinies, peoples, principalities, and there's something up with this area. And Susan and I desperately want to see revival sparked in this area. And this prophecy about Olive Branch, Mississippi, reminded us of Susan having a dream. She had a dream of this geographical intersection when she just got into this area. When she arrived in this area, she had this dream about Church and Craft Road, the intersection. So Susan and I are keeping our spiritual ears and eyes open for something in this area, for revival. That's what we're hoping for. Remember how we used to have Christian karaoke, John's Java House out there in Copper's Cove? Shout out to John. Had Jesus Jam, Lamb Passes, open mics, anything. These things, if you pump it up for the people, they'll catch that wave of revelation. They'll just start doing it themselves. And we're like, there's nothing out here. We've been looking. There's really no Christian coffee shops. People will get together and pray, but people aren't getting together and doing worship and getting excited about God. We haven't seen anything like that yet. It may be here, but we haven't seen it. So we go to this region over here of Olive Branch, we're like, man, there's something going on in Olive Branch. Now, when she has this dream of the intersection of Church Road and Craft Road, I thought the Lord was saying something prophetically, like it was symbolical, is that the word? Of the stronghold of witchcraft, churchcraft in the church. It's no secret that the corporate church is kind of blocking the things of God. I mean, just, it's real simple. We meet every Sunday at 10 for 30 minutes and we go home. God isn't moving. This whole thing of the Jezebel, spirit that people are writing books about. There's a huge religious spirit in this area. Lots of Freemasonry, paganism, and all sorts of stuff, is going on. And so we go to Olive Branch to check out the store, Overcoming Abuse God's Way, the thrift store. We find it. We didn't know where it was, and we did stumble across it. So we see the store, and then one thing of note that hits me, it's really interesting because as we were driving around, how if you keep your ear to the Spirit and your eyes to the Spirit, these things seem to happen. Paul says we're supposed to walk after the Spirit, not after the flesh. So I see this pink vehicle, and I'm like going, that's unique. There's a pink vehicle. And then I notice that there's a coffee shop called Pink's. I'm like, wow, I wonder if they're related. So we leave, we're deciding to leave, we don't really sense much is going on, and we take the wrong turn. And this is the funny thing. We took a wrong turn and we kind of get trapped down this cul-de-sac. So we turn around and then we go to this park. I know this is a long story, but it all kind of ties together, to be honest. Now we go into this park, and then all of a sudden I see that pink vehicle. And you know how the Lord will bring to remembrance whatsoever he's told you. Well, that jogged my memory about the Pink's coffee shop. And I said, Susan, let's go over there. Let's go back to that coffee shop and see maybe if we can do some Christian karaoke or open mic or something. Let's just check out that area. There's something to that. So we go back to that coffee shop and it's closed. So God is still working in this though. The coffee shop's closed and we're like going, well, there's something up. So we start walking around the area. And then I see this girl. Get this. She's walking with somebody, but she's wearing a pink shirt. And Susan and I, we both kind of like goes, there's something up, the girl with the pink shirt. And she's looking at us like there's something up with us. And so finally she separates from the lady that she's talking with. I'm like, hey, do you work here or something? She goes, yeah, would you like to see a venue? And I'm like, what? There's venues here? Because there's no signs or anything to indicate that there's a venue, okay? But there happens to be 3 that you can rent. And all 3 in this area of Olive Branch could be used for, some type of Christian, karaoke, open mic, or whatever. And Susan and I are blown away by this. This is walking after the Spirit. This is prophetic revelation. And so this does not end. Okay, this does not end. We go into the 3 venues, and there's these people talking in the second one. There's a man and 2 ladies. And they start talking to us, and it turns out that one of them is the mayor of Olive Branch, Scott Phillips. Shakes my hand. We talk about the National Day of Prayer and all that, and I'm excited about Jesus. And Susan and I are kind of sitting here with our mouths open like going, man, we just heard about that this morning. So that's amazing. So God is up to something in Olive Branch. Please pray about what he's doing. If that prophecy, it says that Olive Branch will stretch into Memphis, you will hear this Friday, but maybe we need to get involved in something. God works in geographical places and time. Like Jacob's ladder, he had to be going by that spot to see the angels and see that was a geographical location. Abram was to sacrifice his son on that one Mount Moriah, 3 days journey, right? And then Jesus had to meet the woman at the well at a specific time and geographic location. I believe God is up to something. So please pray about it. And you can email me if God gives you some revelation, Conrad@ConradRocks.net. This prophetic revelation is not over. There's going to be more after this. Can you believe that?
This is Janet with Overcoming Abuse God's Way. We're a ministry that educates the cause and effects of abuse to men, women, and children. You're having coffee with Conrad at ConradRocks.net.
Thank you for visiting ConradRocks.net. Conrad Rocks is supported by people just like you. If you've been blessed by Conrad Rocks, please prayerfully consider giving an offering. You can conveniently do so by using the Contribute button on the sidebar at ConradRocks.net. Regular contributors get a spot on the Conrad's Comrades page, which links back to the blog or social media of your choice. You can also help Conrad Rocks by sharing your favorite posts on Facebook. Thanks again for being a part of Conrad Rocks. Remember, Jesus rules.
That is higher than I.
Welcome back to this chock full weekend of prophetic revelation. It started out with some fasting and prayer, and it just turned in, an interview in the morning, turned into this whole just weekend of amazing confirmations. God is up to something in this Memphis Mid-South area, and we think Olive Branch has got a lot to do with it. There's a wave of God right now. He is speaking, and it's crescendoing, which makes me think something is really near. Anyway, so you got to listen, look, what's God saying spiritually? We got to yield to the Spirit. And one of the funny things, and I don't mean funny, ha, but one of the interesting things is the number 11. How the number 11 plays a lot into this weekend. I did a video a few years ago because I kept seeing 9/11 in the morning and in the evening on my clock. And finally, it got to be such an annoying thing. I'm like going, you know what? Why? 9/11's already happened. But it kept resonating with me that in Amos 9:11, it says, "In that day I will raise up the tabernacle of David that's fallen, and close up the breaches thereof, and I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old." And you know, this is quoted in Acts 15:15, and to this agree the words in the prophets as it is written, and he quotes Amos 9:11. So there's something up with the restoration of this Davidic tabernacle. The number 11 is still persisting. Like, if you remember, I was simply writing down the date of 3/11. It was probably in February or March of that year. And God just really, I went into a trance. And this is in my book, Open Your Eyes, My Supernatural Journey. Then on March 11th, you know, they had the largest nuclear meltdown in the history of man, a tsunami and an earthquake over there in Japan. It is an amazing time. March 11th may resonate with some of you because it was the time of the Madrid train bombings in 2004. So there's something up with 11. We've been paying attention to it a lot recently. And I don't like to say God speaks this way, but there's something to this because this particular weekend, which was April 11th, dude, I'm going to tell you kind of what happened here because it'll blow your mind. It blew my mind, okay? We went back to pray over the area of Olive Branch and maybe look for a place to live. You know, God, what do you want to do in this area? You know, we're going back to the church and craft area in downtown Olive Branch. Maybe God wants to spark revival there, you know, so we're paying attention. God, what do you want to do? So, and like I said, God does things at geographical locations and points of time. So we venture into the area of church and craft, and we're driving around this neighborhood. And I have an open vision in the middle of the car. I mean, it's amazing. I see this hand in a 5-finger glove. Now, the glove starts out having separate fingers, okay? The 2 fingers on the right were crippled and atrophied, and they just weren't working, you know? They weren't very much used to the hand. Okay, so anyway, the hand was trying to get into the glove, and because of the curled nature, the crippled nature of the 3rd finger and the pinky, they couldn't get in the glove. Then it turns into a mitt, like an oven mitt, so that the hand could get in there. Now, I want to emphasize that that's April 11th, which is 4/11, right? So God knows me, and one of the ways I remember the fivefold ministry is I count on my hand. You know, apostles, prophets, evangelists is the middle finger, and the 3rd finger is the pastor, and the teacher is represented by the little finger. So I'm like going, wow, Susan, this is amazing. God is saying something about the pastors and the teachers. And overall, okay, there's something wrong. They're separated from the rest of the apostles, prophets, and evangelists. There's something up with that. So we're praying about it through the day. And we get home to read our Jennifer LeClaire book, which came out on April 7th. The Appeal to Heaven flag on it, you know, with the tree, or it has the tree on it. And something funny is we are 11% into this book. Now, we think, well, that's interesting. There's a lot of 11s today. So we notice as we're reading, we read this as a devotional, she quotes the revivalist Steve Hill. You know, Steve Hill's the guy that, you know, was there during the Pensacola revival, the Brownsville revival. It's an amazing time. We go back and watch some of the baptism videos. You can watch some of the videos now and go, wow, God was there. So anyway, it turns out that Jennifer LeClaire is quoting Steve Hill, and we looked for the article, and he wrote this article on 12/11, December 11th, 2012. And I'm like, oh man, there's another 11. This is just too much to ignore. So this article that she's quoting is from Charisma News, December 11th, 2012, and Steve's talking about the state of the church back then. And he talks about, and it's really funny because he talks about the pastors and the teachers. And as soon as we read that in Jennifer's book, Susan goes, do you realize he just talked about the pastors and the teachers? And I'm sitting here, I'm like going, well, yeah. And wow, that's the vision we had today. That is amazing. So anyway, we continue to read, and then he mentions the fivefold ministry in order, which means he's mentioning Ephesians 4:11, and all this happens on April 11th. So we knew that that was God. I mean, that was God, right? So we had to make the video. I'll include the link to the video in this podcast because it's just an amazing time. So God is up to something, and there's even more prophetic revelation that happened this weekend. But I'd be sitting here just talking all day about the prophetic coincidences where God is, all this stuff is coming together right now. So I want you to pay attention. You know, one of the big things, one of the huge things is the theme of 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. There is a point where God is speaking so strongly. This message right now, Exalt Jesus Memphis, was chock full of this. We expect that not to just to be an event, but to be a movement through the Memphis, North Mississippi or Mid-South area. So we're going to be talking a lot about that this Friday with Tina Tatum from tinatatum.org. You've got to check it out. It's an amazing interview. We talk about the Appeal to Heaven flag. She goes into detail what that's about. We talk about 2 Chronicles 7:14. We talk about what God is doing in this Memphis Mid-South area. He is up to something, and we talk about Olive Branch too. So be sure and check that out this Friday. I want to thank you for being a part of my life. Thank you for listening to Conrad Rocks. And remember, it's people just like you that keep this blog and this podcast going. Consider going to the support page, and there you can give a gift and help us keep this thing rolling for Jesus. Now, remember, you can also help out by sharing your favorite episodes with your friends and family on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. Remember that. Just click that share button. God bless you. Till we meet again, dig deeper and go higher.
Hi, this is John Shaba House.
This is the Kid Renegade Redeemed with Forever Redeemed Ministries.
This is Amy from Amy Daily.
This is Tiffany White with Hey Ministries.
This is Dan the Coffee Man.
This is Glenda Linkus from wingsofprophecy.com.
Jill Dyson from Angel Street Ministry.
Sisters Teacup Ministry for Women.
This is Marianne Sansom from Google+.
This is Charles Michael from France.
DesperatioMinistries.org. Jackie Smith from the Intentional Christianpreneur Podcast.
This is Janet with Overcoming Abuse God's Way.
Spreading-joy.org.
This is Gerald Thomas in New Hebron, Mississippi.
This is Mordecai from Oklahoma.
This is Vicki at Michael's House of New Beginnings.
This is Stephen Barrett from Holy Fire, Japan.
We are having coffee with Conrad. Conrad Rock.